Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about what is an influencer's responsibility to their fans.
But before we get into it, make sure to smash the like button.
Over there. Now, why are we even talking about this? This is such a weird, random topic to talk about this episode.
Well, it's because I had recently seen a lot of influencer critique videos, I guess you could call it.
What, in the vein of every frame of painting? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we have come to this point. We're no longer critiquing films and cinema. We're critiquing
people.
People on YouTube.
And yeah, they're kind of in the form of video essays.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and particularly I saw some hate videos for a particular influencer.
For who?
Called Bestdressed. I don't know if you heard of her here on YouTube, but I like her.
We love her.
Yeah. But there have been a lot of influencer critique videos where they, for the most part, either, I think, try to fairly criticize influencers as a whole if they're not attacking one particular person, or it ranges from that, which is like trying to be fair, and it goes to like a hatred,
outlandish criticisms.
Yeah, very like it feels almost personal, like people's problems with their, I don't know, it really feels like their favorite person at a certain point, even though they hate them.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, so at least with her in particular, I was watching a bunch of ones.
Should we explain who this is first for everybody?
Okay.
Yeah.
So she is a fashion influencer. She makes really neat fashion videos here on YouTube. Now it's more like lifestyle.
Now there has been a bajillion trillion fashion influencers.
Yeah.
What's so special about this one?
She is new and young, and I think we'll get into it, but there's a difference between what I consider like OG YouTube, like from 2006 when YouTube first started to about like 2016 or even like 2010, and then there's like a difference of the people coming up now,
like Jen and Megan Batoon.
Yeah, so other influencers that I really like that are in the same like niche as her is like Jen M, which I would call her an OG influencer.
Like a little bit after OG?
Yeah.
Right.
Like somewhere in between. Whereas like I'm sure a lot of people know, like for makeup, like Michelle Phan is like the OG makeup influencer and stuff like that. And there's kind of a difference. There's a difference between like Michelle Phan and Jeffree Star. There's a difference between like people who got successful on YouTube back in the day and people who are getting successful now.
And the methods vary.
Yeah.
Right? Man.
And one of the biggest differences is relatability. How I feel like the new generation of influencers and people coming up and gaining a lot of popularity on YouTube are able to connect with you, the viewer, the audience, on a much deeper level because they're not afraid to show their flaws.
Whereas in before, YouTubers and influencers tried with all their might to have the heavily manicured alternate version of themselves. I think what's really fascinating about Ashley is, as far as I know, she was the very first person who was like, this is me, take it or leave it.
Yeah, like I have flaws, I'm a little bit derpy, I'm real, or as real as I'm willing to put myself out there.
Yeah, and as realer than most of the people on the internet.
Yeah, like what usually lines up with that is like, oh, you're willing to talk, you're willing to swear, or you're willing to talk about certain things that most people would be like, oh, no, don't talk about that in public.
Or you're sharing opinions that you're not really entirely sure yourself, but that's what you're thinking at the moment.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like very quick summary, kind of what that is. And so like when I discovered her, I think I discovered her when she was like at 50K.
Right. So you were. So how old are you now?
I just turned 28.
Oh, congratulations! And how old is she?
She's 22, I think. Yeah. She's so young.
Yeah. She's almost like a little sister to you, almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And she, I discovered her because she was doing these thrift flip things, or just thrifting in general was really popular at the time, about 2 or 3 years ago. And I really wanted to save money and thrift, but I was stuck at work at DreamWorks at the time and just kind of miserable, and I would just be a little bit of a voyeur and like watch her vicariously living her young 20-something life.
That's why that content got really popular. I think there was a lot of fashion thrifters who would use that app. I forgot what the name of that app was.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah,
now,
but they would use the app, and then it would just be interesting to see how much they bought something for versus how much they flipped it for.
Yeah.
And then Gary Vee did the whole thing where he went to just normal garage sales and then sold the shit he got on eBay, and all of a sudden he's making more money. It's crazy.
And as someone who has been on YouTube since, not on it, but like aware, well, like a big fan of YouTube. It was my entertainment, because I didn't really watch TV, and I didn't really have, I don't even know if Netflix was a thing at the time, but I was really into YouTube as my sole source of entertainment for a really long time. And I was used to like the Michelle fans. I was a fan of Jen M before I ever discovered Bestdressed, or Ashley. Her name was Ashley.
You had like a holy trinity. It was you would rotate between Jen, Bubs, and Whaley.
Yeah.
That was your rotation.
Partly because when I wanted to follow other Asian people who look like me, partly because if you try to follow makeup advice from someone who does not have your skin
features,
color, your feature,
work.
It just doesn't work.
Well, yeah.
You just fail miserably. So I was like, I need to learn how to do this makeup thing. I might as well follow people who kind of look like me. And so I was used to that. And then I found her, which first I was just into her content. I didn't care about who she was. And then
just into it, and objectively, she's really good at teaching how to do this thing.
Yeah, or I simply just wanted to feel like I'm going thrifting while I'm sitting at work doing mindless tasks.
Right.
But but then the more videos I watched of hers, the more I got really amused by her personality. So
this is why I think Ashley's really special, because you went through that rotation. There would be things about each of those ladies that would annoy the shit out of me.
You're like, I can't. Why are you watching them?
Why are you watching them? This is so fake. This is so fucking fake. I know they're saying one thing and it looks like one thing, but it's obvious to me it's not like that at all. But what was really funny was when you would start watching this girl, oh, I'm watching this new girl. Yeah. I'm like, oh, she looks really pretty. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I guess she lives in LA just like everybody else. I wonder what's so great about her. But then the more you watch her, especially at the time when it was still very novel, it's still kind of novel now, she would just do and say things that if the other YouTubers we mentioned did, they would have a stroke or edit it out. Yeah, exactly. But she'd leave it in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that takes some guts, first of all, because that means whether you're secure with yourself or not, you understand that it's not about how pristine and perfect people are. It's about the flaws and the little mistakes that we do like that someone else can do, that manufactures relatability.
Yeah, because like, oh, that's like me, or like what, or at the very least, it's kind of when you're used to it being so kind of like PG and like manicured. It's a little bit shocking when you see
it's
that.
Really jarring.
Yeah.
To go from those three to Bestdressed, it was like night and day. And so first of all, I noticed the tone.
Yeah.
Second of all, I noticed the shot language.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, and then color choice.
Color correction.
Yeah. Color correction, but also the pieces that she chose from the thrift store. I was like, this girl, she's like really into art, isn't she? Like, I could just see visually how into art she was.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, she's like a film student for UCLA at the time, right?
And I think that's why a lot of people fall in love with her at first. It's because of how relatable she is, and how willing she's able to put as much as she can of her personality and who she is,
for better, for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse. Like, it might make her look bad, or it might
get her a lot of hate comments, or whatever it is.
But at first, it's really charming, and it's really like, hey, I really like this girl. She is who she is, and like, she doesn't care. But one of the criticisms that you eventually have for her, or people have for her, is that it all eventually feels a little bit fake and like manufactured. She put out this one video of her repeating a joke for like 20 minutes straight, trying to get the best take. She
rehearses herself say the same line, and she wants like expert, like she wants the perfect delivery. Yeah. Like she's David Fincher for herself. And she would repeat it like a robot.
Yeah.
Like the phrase would be like, and I went inside the thrift store, 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 and I went inside the thrift store. And then you think she's broken, but actually, like, if you really think about it, what she really is doing, she's trying to choose the best delivery, but visually it looks terrifying.
Especially for the length of time.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I can see your perfectionist tendencies, like a little bit too, like, clearly. Like, I didn't need to see that. Because, like, I think anyone who's ever recorded a YouTube video knows you kind of have to do that to a certain extent.
Yes.
I'm not gonna sit there. You
do that,
yeah, because I suck at talking.
Yeah. And then sometimes I didn't have enough energy, and you want to put more energy, or whatever it is.
Guys, if I put out the uncut version of my YouTube videos, it would be just as terrifying, but not quite as long. That's the only difference. I'd just be like, good enough.
We used to have this goal of like trying to do this whole podcast without editing anything, and we got, I think, like episode close. Like 5, 6, or 7, we got kind of close, and then I kind of just gave up on it, because it's like there's so many human mistakes and flubs,
and we're not
that we make
expert speakers.
We're not pundits or anything. We don't talk for a living, it's difficult.
It's even hard to know when to transition to the next topic, so then you have dead air, and you don't want that. So it's just stuff like that. But
the way Ashley takes it,
it's to a whole nother, like, you have to be quite the perfectionist to put yourself through that. I mean, you actually are kind of more like that than I am. I'm actually more like, I don't care
about the delivery.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I try to do it in one take. You know?
That's the difference. Like, so there are like 3 different kinds of people. There's her, who's like a super perfectionist. There's you, who's like very good at talking and being on camera naturally. So like, you have it in you to do everything in one take, so you force yourself to.
It's also in a way it's like a game too. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like doing like a improv routine or something.
Yeah.
So like
But for me, I actually suck
yeah.
at talking.
Yeah.
I'm really bad. So
I had to teach you as best as I could, and I'm not good at teaching these kind of concepts, but how to use your diaphragm.
Yeah, and I think I'm still really bad at it, and I stutter a lot. And I lose my train of thought mid-sentence.
So excuse us for the edits, okay? Gosh.
But yeah, so that happened. But what that ended up doing, I think, is making her fans who were already starting to see, I think it made the crux of her show a little bit more. So like the fact that like, not that she's fake, but there's a certain amount of like awkwardness in front of camera that you feel like you need to perform when you are in front of camera. So I challenge anyone and everyone to like write a paragraph, set up a camera in front of you and deliver it and watch it back and see how awkward you are. And you know, then you want to improve.
I'd be good at it though.
You would be,
Yeah.
But like you also like we're in theater. and
Honestly,
stuff like that.
well, yeah. Honestly, I do it like 2 or 3 times, because then I'd be like, I do it as best as I can 2 or 3 times, and then I pick the best one. See,
It's not fair how good you are at it. Yeah. So when you do it, it feels really unnatural. Your first take is probably gonna be really awkward. So you're gonna try again, but this time you're gonna try to like ham it up a little bit or
Yeah.
give it a little bit more. You're still trying to be yourself, but
just giving it some juice though.
yeah. And so that's where like being in front of camera is the most unnatural thing ever. And that's why it was like just so refreshing to see her be as best as she could herself in front of camera. And when you have this illusion of like, oh, she is exactly who she is on camera, and then it's broken, then I think people feel manipulated, or that you are a hypocrite, especially because she honestly, like, she rambles a lot when she's on camera or whatever, and like sometimes she's just like saying jokes for the sake of jokes, or
Sometimes she's practicing talking.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I forgive practically anyone for the stupid shit they say. especially if you're in your young 20s. Like, we've all said stupid things when you're a kid, things that you don't believe in anymore or whatever, and I am happy that I didn't film myself saying it. But like, you know, so like, regardless of if her opinions are actually her opinions that I disagree with, or maybe she contradicts herself in one video and then there's another video or whatever, like, I don't care. What do I care? She's like 22.
I don't understand why people always look at it like it's a moment to moment thing, but they don't look at it as a whole. You know, this person, I remember, she doesn't even look like the same person anymore.
Yeah.
But like, just watching her grow through that time, it's just like, why is everyone so obsessed with the nitty gritty details of every moment to moment thing? And just like, look at like this impressive growth of like this person selling thrift store stuff, and now she's working with big people making crazy sponsored ads and shit. It's just like, that's pretty incredible. But yeah, she's kind of a dork, and her like her monologues are cringy as fuck. But it's whatever. It's just like, if I had a little sister who was like saying all that bullshit in the camera, I'm not gonna be like, you know, I actually would be, but I'd be like, you sound like a fucking idiot. But I'm not gonna be like, but it's your choice to sound like a fucking idiot.
I won't be like, don't say that.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, okay,
Like, whatever.
I'm judging you. I'm gonna roast you.
Yeah.
Like a big sister should.
But I really liked how hard you tried
Yeah,
in the
like-
video. The colors you chose were really nice.
Doesn't
The shots you
harm
chose were
anyone.
pretty neat. Yeah, like,
Jeez.
what? I just don't understand the intense passion for something so little as like maybe she does, and I could tell sometimes she like feigns or tries to do the whole oh, I'm derpy and I'm awkward thing.
Oh yeah, because it's become her brand.
Yeah.
Then you feel like
then she hams it up,
yeah.
you know, and then that gives keen people a sense of like, oh, you're faking it.
Yeah.
But like, what it's like, it's just her channel, you know.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It's just her life on display.
Yeah.
And I guess people are free to say whatever they want about her, fine. But it's like, a lot of these criticisms, like you watch like a ton of these criticisms, and like every single one, I'm just like, that's the stupidest criticism. Like, there are things I have legitimate criticisms with her with that none of these people even touched.
Yeah. And I really started like analyzing these things because I did come from it as a perspective of like a fan who eventually, because I kind of just grew out of watching her videos a little bit, and I stopped watching it, and then because of certain criticisms that I had for her, and then I started watching it. Like I still watch her videos every once in a while.
And like if you watch YouTube a lot, everybody has that relationship with somebody on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like you would be really fervently following this person's content, and you kind of fall off the wagon, and then you check in once in a while, and then sometimes you might get back into it and you fall off. That's kind of what it's like. It's not like TV where like, oh, they string you on for season after season. You kind of, it's like you're visiting people's lives.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And so when I would watch these videos, because I was like, man, it takes a lot to hate someone this much.
Yeah.
I kind of understood because, or at the very least agreed with a lot of the criticisms, and they're not, I feel like these are so intense because they loved her at one point.
Yeah, when you explained to me that, I was just thinking, oh, these are just haters, like whatever, I don't care. But then when you said, oh, it's people who used to love her, and then I immediately thought of my relationship with Nintendo.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because when you fuck with some, like Nintendo, fuck with somebody who loved you and would have bought any console that you would have churned out, but you've wronged me so many times. I'm going to be your biggest enemy.
Yeah, so like they like point out her hypocrisy, like, oh, you tout yourself as a sustainable queen, but you
work with Amazon,
yeah,
and all that ridiculous
whatever.
shit, whatever. Yeah.
And then they'll say something like, it's not that I care, because I don't, but I'm annoyed at her hypocrisy. and then I go like, okay, you just said you don't care, so why are you like judging
It's
this
obvious
girl
you
so
care.
hard? Yeah.
You made a whole video,
And so
uploaded it and everything. Of course you care.
So I eventually, life goes on, and I forget about all of this, and then I stumbled upon like an influencer video essay, call it, I guess. And this isn't attacking her specifically, it's just criticizing influencers as a whole. And I think the person who made the video had a lot of interesting points that I agree with and simultaneously disagreed with at the same time, because they were making this point that like influencers are hypocrites and manipulators and all these things, and the evidence is that like they'll make you do things like ask you stupid questions so that you'll comment in the comments section down below, and
it's for the algorithm.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, it's literally for the algorithm, and if that offends you, I don't know why that would offend you.
Why does that offend you?
That, for one, but also, like, what I eventually thought was, like, influencers are kind of like advertisers or marketers. They're like a walking billboard for certain things. And what is it about influencers that you feel like you trust them a little bit more? Whereas an ad that plays on TV, I mean, this is why you're not really allowed to show direct ads towards kids
Right.
and stuff like that, because they don't have the capability to understand certain things about ads. But like at a certain age, every human learns that ads are manipulative.
Yeah.
There's psychology involved, there's researchers involved, there's a whole like history of advertisement that figured out how to best advertise to you
And buy the product.
so much to the point that they can predict your behavior before you even do it. So there are studies where all these advertisers do this, by the way. They know when you're going to get married, or if you're about to get married. They know if you are about to have kids. They know every little thing about. They know if you're a woman. They know if you're a man. They know what you like. They know what size you are. They know everything. And then they'll advertise to you, and there's this whole manipulative game to it, and people just understand that. People just know, like, oh, that ad got me. I want a hamburger now.
Participants, yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, I remember thinking really hard, like, do you even succumb to any ads? Because you really don't, except for food ads.
Food gets me. So, me, as someone who has been watching YouTubers for a really long time, I understand that basic idea that, like, no matter how this relationship seems, like I feel like I'm a fan of so-and-so or whatever, I'm not going to trust them 100% because I have my own brain. I disagree with certain things that they say, or I just be like, oh, they're trying to sell me something, skip. Like, so...
That's me.
Yeah. But, like, I get it, though. Like, so this idea of, like, oh, they're trying to manipulate you, be like, yes. Is that not their job? Like, that's, like, you don't understand if any one of you have ever tried to get, like, 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 followers on a certain app or whatever. If you want to get there fast, you need to figure out the algorithm a little bit, right? So, like, you start figuring out little things that helps boost your engagement, little things, whatever. It's not out of, like, oh, I'm gonna, like, get this person's comments right now, and, like, it's like this. It's not like this evil, like, scheming manipulation. Yeah. So I think that whole criticism is strange. It's like, no, haram, they manipulate you. Well, yeah, duh. Is that not obvious? I thought, and at a certain point too, there's this idea that this relationship, the relationship that you have as a person on camera with whoever's watching you, is a very strange one. They call it a parasocial relationship, where it's very one-sided, where the person watching you feels like they know you, and then you have no idea that they exist. You're just you're just filming yourself. I thought it was an interesting one, because this whole idea of, like, manipulation is strange to me, because at a certain point, the person on camera can't help certain things. Like, let's say your criticism is like, well, influencers shouldn't manipulate people. They shouldn't do this. They should be, with great power comes great responsibility, whatever.
Well, thanks, Uncle Ben.
But there are, to a certain extent, there are certain things that are kind of out of your control if you're the person on camera. Because you might, like, do certain things that you are just doing, but you have no idea how it's going to affect someone else. Like, as it can be as small and benign as, like, I like this kind of shampoo. It shows up on camera, and then people go like, oh, that must be the best. Like, so, like, you didn't mean for that to happen, or you didn't mean for certain things to come across a certain way or to whatever. And then, like, at a certain point, you don't have very much control in this kind of relationship over what your audience does or thinks. So I thought, like, yeah, so in this relationship, the nature of this relationship is that it is a little bit manipulative, even if you have every intention to fight against it. if you don't want to do that. So I thought, like, man, that's a very strange critique that, like, people are complaining that influencers are manipulative. Some are, for sure. There are varying degrees. The only time I have a problem with it is if it's illegal. Otherwise, I don't care how bad a person you are if you're not doing anything illegal. So I'm just like, okay, like, whoever's watching the person be awful, you're clicking on their video, you're watching, you're doing that to yourself in a way. Like, if you wanted them to disappear and no one to watch, don't watch them then.
So what would you say is the difference between Gen M's generation of YouTube and Bestdressed, basically contemporary now YouTube? What's the difference in presentation and almost psychology?
Well, I think new school YouTube is trying to be as faithful to who they are on camera as much as they can be. They're trying to be, like, they're taking this idea of relatability to the next level. To be like, oh, I know someone exactly like you, or I'm just like you. And that's crazy, like, for better, for worse. And when you love someone, even with their faults, that's such a more intense love.
That's a deep love.
Yeah.
There's so many things I hate about you. And there's so many things you hate about me. Yeah. But the fact that like one is willing to overlook their friends, whatever, that's what love is. And when the more you have to curate yourself to be loved by everyone, no one really loves you.
Yeah,
because they don't know who you really are.
Yeah, it's the difference between, like, having a best friend that you know all their faults about them and you love them anyways, they're your best friend, versus someone who has many friends, like, you know, that person in high school who's like friends with everyone, but you talk to them and you start to realize, like, they feel really lonely because they don't feel like they really have any friends at all. It's that's the difference. You know, I can think of so many that's not just in the fashion niche. So I used to be a really big fan of Philip Defranco.
Yeah, so when we first started dating, you don't watch the news, really. Not really, but, like, you're at the time, because we were in college too. Mm-hmm. Like, your source of news was Philip Defranco, and then you would listen to him all the time. And I'm like, who is this, like, lame dude that you keep watching? Who is this guy? And then you explained it to me.
Yeah, well,
who is this guy?
He is, I guess, one of the first people who were on YouTube who became a YouTuber who reacted to news, to current events, I guess. And I was never into, like, traditional news, but I was always very interested in what was happening in the world through the lens of people.
A normal person.
Yeah, a normal person.
Right. Yeah, news is like network news always feels like some sort of sporting event or WWE. There's so much, like, infographics and talking heads everywhere. Yeah. Whereas when you just want a normal person regurgitating or their opinions on the news.
Whether you agree or disagree, you just kind of wanted to hear it
with all the fluff,
like
and all that crazy stuff.
So I grew up. I think I started listening to him in, like, middle school or high school. So I've always been very, like, aware of what was happening in the world. I feel like for you were just completely, like,
oh no,
you didn't know what was going on.
Give a crap, no.
Yeah. And so I saw him go from, like, really relatable, douchey kind of person, like, again, like, flaws and all, or, like, he always said, like, he was very, like, self-deprecating all the time about, like, oh, I never graduated in college, or, like, I dropped out, or, like, why are you coming to me for news, like, I'm not a journalist. Like, listen to someone else. And, like, I liked that, because I knew, like, I'm not coming to you for news, not really. I'm coming for you for, like, in a way,
your everyday average Joe reaction to the news, right? And
somewhere along the way that changed, and now I really I really can't watch him.
Yeah, so for me, when you started listening to him, he was like, he would have, so his segments at the time were like, you know, BAMF, and he'd talk about some like news here, and then sometimes, a lot of the times actually when we first started dating, news overseas. It was really interesting. But then I didn't like him at first. You were actually the first person to introduce me to like YouTube, like in like a deep way. I have always liked YouTube a lot. I used to post on YouTube a lot in high school. My friends also used to post like either covers of their music or skateboard videos or whatever it is. So YouTube was a big part of my life, but I didn't understand YouTube culture deeply until I met you, and you told me about these like YouTube influencers and Philip DeFranco and all these people, and I'd be like, those people, they just stay at home and like record themselves on TV, like, you know, like get a real job. Like I'm trying to work in Hollywood. I'm trying to get a real job. But then you really, especially me knowing how much work it takes to put a video online, you see how often these people post. It's crazy. Like they do treat it like it's work. So when I would watch Philip DeFranco was one of the first people who posted basically every day, Monday through Friday, with, you know, not just gaming content or playing a video game, which you can do easily because you're continuing something. This is something he has to find stories. He has to really like obviously think about what his reaction is to it. And it got more and more intricate. Like when we first started dating, it was very like, oh, I'm just this guy, just like you, or just like this is my reaction to news. Duh, like, oh, this is so silly. Oh, in some sort of a serious note, this is what's happening overseas. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. See you tomorrow. And it was like, eventually, I got a taste for it to the point where almost like let's say about 7 months to a year, maybe on and off when we first started dating to up until the beginning of this year, I was listening to him almost every 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
He was my news, catching up with what's going on out there.
And I think things changed when he really started taking himself a little bit more serious and fact-checking a lot more, and like hiring researchers, and then like really I think stepping into this role as a journalist, I guess, which is totally not why I went and watched him for. And I was just like, okay. I already disagreed with a lot of things that he said. Now it made it kind of unbearable if you're gonna start treating yourself as like a legitimate news source. So I was kind of like, oh god, like this always happens with like old school YouTubers. I always like have like a moment where I'm like, god, I just can't stand you anymore. And then I find someone new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh, interesting.
So when I was making my rounds, because I want like all sorts of opinions, like, and YouTube's such a great source for news, like because you can actually, you know, instead of listening to whoever like Anderson Cooper or Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson, you can actually choose which pundit you like, and like, and then that way you can kind of cater your own news channel for yourself. So I found this dude, fucking guy, looks like some fucking guy I would skate with. Fucking looks like he's scruffy, kind of stout looking, kind of pasty looking. He has this beanie and he talks really fast, and he literally looks like somebody I would have skate with when I was a kid. He's like ripped jeans and wears all black and has Vans. And this dude posts every day, at the time 3 times a day, about news. And I was like, this kid is a monster. And I realized he's not a kid. He looks like a kid, but he's like he's like at least 6 or 7 years older than us, I think.
Same problem I have.
Yeah. Yeah, he does look like a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found this dude, and he was he would talk about the news in a very simple way. It's interesting that Philip DeFranco has this amazing production with like an intro, infographics, and then cuts to this, cuts to that. But this dude, this skater dude, just has his desktop screen and then a tiny little frame of his face and his beanie, and he would just like talk to you about what's going on, and he would read out loud certain news articles like we all would, like waiting for your bagel in the morning. You would read the news, and then that's what he would do. He would just regurgitate the news and share his opinion. And like every pundit, there are things that you agree with and things that you don't. But then it's like this kid is like, he's just amazing in the sense that like he just keeps doing this. And then you started listening to him a little bit, and you didn't really. Did you like him at first?
I think like everything else, it was dependent on the content.
Right.
Yeah. So if I liked the content, then I liked what he did. So like if I liked Bestdressed's content, I liked her thrifting first, and then I liked her. But it always takes a while. So like I'd be thankful that he informed me about whatever, but I didn't think I cared either way if I liked him or not.
So who's the most hardworking person on YouTube?
Tim Pool.
Works harder than all of you ever could.
I think,
and that's coming from art center people.
Yeah, I think it's a problem. I think he's a workaholic, legitimately.
Coming from a workaholic?
Yeah. Maybe like I consider myself a recovering workaholic.
Trying to find
balance.
Peace and balance.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he just does not care
he
about
likes being
balance.
in the fire.
Yeah.
So now Tim, at the time when I discovered him, posts 3 times a day, had one channel. He has 2 channels. He posts 3 times a day in one channel, 1 time a day on one channel, and he has a podcast which he does. I don't know how many times a night, but like now you've become a bigger Tim fan than I ever could have become.
I think out of because of how consistent his content is. And
I think the more you started to do YouTube, the more you were just like floored with how much that dude is able to accomplish.
Yeah. Like one of the most impressive things is his podcast. When he first, I think he started it this year actually. And when you start doing a podcast, you start realizing how often you lose your train of thought.
It sucks.
And how much you are self-conscious when there's a dead air, or when you stutter, or when certain things happen. And when I would watch his videos, I'd be like, there's no way. Like, he's really good at speaking for, I don't know, 20 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. Maybe there are edits, I don't know. I'm not, most of the time not watching the screen. Mm-hmm. But when I saw him talk on his podcast for the first time, I was impressed at his speaking ability, for one, and his ability to remember and segue into new topics like so naturally without missing a beat, like no dead air, no nothing. And I was like, wow, that's speaking for like hours on YouTube for 5 years. That's what that does. Because right now I'm a lot better at speaking than I initially was.
A lot better. Like I said before, you didn't even know how to like use your tummy to talk.
Yeah. And the more I do this, the more I can see, like, okay, if you go to any YouTuber's first videos, they're awkward. They're so different. But then, compared to who they are now. And it's the same for Tim, because, so I'm kind of weird.
So you know when Janet says these things like, oh, I'm gonna do my like research for social media, this is one of her social media exercises. When she's impressed with a person's growth, for example like Tim Pool, she would go into that person's deep into that person's history, very first few videos, and then track the growth and the rate in which the viewers like grow and all this stuff through the years. And you would go like video by video by video by video.
Yeah, I go into the Wayback Machine, and I look at like, this is, yeah, everyone who I'm impressed with. That's I guess the right word for it. I go into their history, I go into the Wayback Machine, and I go, that way you have an accurate representation of where they were at that period of time. So that's why I'm not entirely concerned with like growth and that kind of thing, because you collect enough of this data from enough successful people.
See that? She said collecting data. What a nerd. You feel like when you collect data.
You start to realize certain patterns, and one pattern that I've learned very early on before, I learned all of this before I jumped into YouTube, and this is the only reason why someone like me would have the confidence to jump into YouTube like a crazy person. And it's like it takes about 5 years. Give or take, depending on how popular your niche is. Some people get lucky, but not lucky like, oh, you have a viral video all of a sudden. Not that kind of lucky.
No, so what I guess we need to talk about what is our term for success. And for me, success on YouTube isn't the views. It's the views translated into ad dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, into a business.
Right.
So there's some people who know how to turn viewership into a business, and there's some people who just completely don't.
And who just are in it for the vanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the people that I look at their business model and how to apply it to what I personally want to do, I look at it in a business perspective first and foremost, because I do not care about the vanity of being on camera. If you were the one who had to convince me to take Instagram seriously. That's how little I care about these vanity things. But I saw it as like, okay, how long does it take to have a certain size audience, typically? And is it just luck? Is it like random? Are some people just lucky and some people work really hard and eventually strike gold, or what is it? And I was surprised to see usually it's around 5 years, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on how lucky you get with how popular your niche is at the time. So like I said, like Bestdressed, when I found her, the thrifting niche, I guess, was exploding for some reason. Or with Tim right now, like news is like exploding.
Yeah. So I think the biggest, if you want to grow right now, you just do news. I think I guess I'll name drop a few channels. I listen to Nerdrotic and Victor Van Doomcock and all of these people. And especially before Star Wars, those fuckers that barely had like subscribers.
Yeah.
They were at like 30, 50-ish. They have an ungodly amount of subscribers now. Ungodly. It's ridiculous. And I'm noticing that with Tim's viewership too. I'm noticing that all across the board for anybody who talks about current events. It's the way right now. So
that side of things you can't really control. But when I noticed that doesn't matter, because if you consistently put out content for a year, at first for everyone across the board, it's really slow. And
so even for Tim Pool, didn't matter for...
especially for Tim, because no one cared about news like years ago.
No one gave a shit about watching... I think he came up during Occupy. People were watching news on the TV still. Yeah. Right.
And this whole live streaming thing was like not really a thing yet.
Yeah.
But around like year 2 is when it starts picking up a little, and then year 3 it really starts picking up, and then like everyone thinks people by year 5 just struck gold or something, like they came out of nowhere, but like they've been doing it for years. So I really like gained more I gained more respect for these people, because you realize for how long they were working really hard at something where they were getting pretty much little to no return, but they like either really enjoyed what they did, or they just believed in themselves and what they were doing for long enough for that until like it finally like takes off. And it really does take a really long time, and especially if you don't want to engage in the algorithm, like I said.
So briefly explain how engagement works in a platform like YouTube.
So anything that you do,
anything, likes, dislikes, comments,
how fast you scroll,
you clicking on recommended.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that the algorithm kind of knows where your eyes are tracking on the screen.
It's kind of, man. It's closer than we think.
So, every little thing you do on any social media platform is like, consider it like a point system. Like you as a participant, you give points to people, and the more you do things like and comment and how long you view something, or if you viewed something or whatever, it gives them more points. And the more points you get, the more the algorithm is going to think, compute and be like, oh, this, according to how people responded to it, people like it, so I'm going to push it out more. Which is why the rich get richer on YouTube. People who are already really big tend to get bigger. And when you are small, there's absolutely no reason for the algorithm to work for you. So that again, that's why people be like, oh, please comment down below. It really does help, because it really does help.
Yeah.
And if you do things like ask people to comment, ask people to like, ask people to whatever, then you are upping your chances of being pushed out, of growing, of whatever. And people are almost like trained to do that when you're small, because you're so desperate to grow, you're so desperate to do anything to get like one more view or one more like or whatever it is, just so you can make it to like 1,000 or whatever. It's like innocent goals. And then because you're trained to do that as a content creator, you continue doing that, and you find out more and more ways, clever ways of doing it. If you want to, it's a choice. Guess what? Tim never did that.
So when you would go into people's profiles, you would go really, really back into their history, and you would see that they used to do the whole thing of like, oh, commenting on people and trying to reach out as many times as they could.
Yeah.
And what that does is like helps people grow faster, right? Basically,
yes.
In a way.
Yeah.
And you explain all that.
Yeah.
Tim doesn't do that.
No,
Tim never did that.
Never. I was so shocked.
Because you and I were talking about like, can we do this without doing that? Because for one, it takes a lot of time out of your day. And for what? Is it going to give you the engagement and the return that you want for the time that you spent? Like, if I spend an hour commenting and like liking and all this stuff, that I could have just made another video or drew something or did something more productive than sitting there trying to up my engagement for one video. And when you're first starting out, it does help a lot. And so the other part is, it's kind of bad for you mentally to do that, because no matter how strong you are, no matter how much you steel yourself and say like these comments and these things don't get to me, like for example, like Gary Vee, I was like, oh, I don't care about any of this. I don't believe that, because everyone's human, and like whether you know it or not, I think being sucked into like looking at likes all the time and looking at comments, looking at all this stuff, looking at the follower count and being pleased or displeased,
it will affect you no matter what. And you really shouldn't, I believe you shouldn't do that to yourself, to your own mental well-being, because that's how you get the people who think like they are more important than they are, and people who they have like mental breakdowns on camera and they like can't handle certain things.
Yeah, because like so much of their obsession imagine if you were like, especially the old school type YouTuber who would just like be super obsessed with subscribers and likes and all this stuff. That's why I see a lot of the old school people breaking down. It's like, you made this your life.
Yeah.
It's no wonder when people turn on you, you crumble like a brick, because you've conditioned yourself this amount of dopamine in this certain way for years.
Yeah. And so I was just kind of like researching and like looking at other people's strategies way back when they were small. Because when you're big, your strategy is not going to be the same as when you're small.
Right.
It's different. Like when you're big, you can practically do anything and people will watch. When you're small, you kind of like
You have to be more curated, right?
in a way, content quality matters more.
Right.
And so I went back and went all the way back to the very first video. And way back in time where like it was like when he first posted, or like a few days after he had first posted.
Right.
Did he comment on his own videos? Nope. He like any of the comments? Nope. Did he do it for the next one and the next one and the next one? No, still doesn't. And I was like,
so
wow.
when you told me that, we were like, there's hope.
I was kind of like, wow, he never cared about this. Like, the thing is, though, I've noticed, like, he knows a lot about algorithms and keyword research and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I don't think you can get to that size without knowing all that stuff that I'm starting to really understand. But I was like, man, you know that if you commented, it would help you out, but you didn't. I was like, well, okay.
He must have thought I had better things to do in my time, which is like what I think too.
Well, I think maybe the difference between Tim and Phil is that, like, I have no problem with, I guess, Phil's choices and what he chooses to report on or whatever, but Phil just doesn't seem to care as much anymore.
Phil, his heart isn't in this shit anymore.
Yeah, and Tim seems to really care.
It gets him off, it seems. Like, just like fucking doing the news every fucking day. He probably like at the end of the day, he's like, he sees all the 10 videos out on YouTube. He's like, all right, time to skate. Time to go to bed.
And like the same thing about relatability. Like, in certain ways, it feels like Phil is a little bit more manicured, whereas Tim is going to say what he thinks and say what he wants to say.
And there's so much confidence in what he has to say too.
Regardless of whatever repercussions might come his way, he just feels through his principles like he needs to report on it, or he needs to say it in this way. And that's like every single person that I have liked of new school YouTube, I guess, tends to be that way. Like, just far more relatable, far more like, I'm going to be who I am regardless of what you may think, or I don't care what you think.
I mean, it's so freeing too to not be beholden to people's judgment.
Yeah.
And just be. And then people like you for what you are, and then if they don't like you, they can leave.
So I think we need to talk about stan culture then.
Okay, so there's so many levels to this, and I'm worried about the poor 35, 40-year-old fan of ours, because there's two levels of you're too old to understand this. First of all, the first layer of too old, you have to understand the etymology of stan. So this word stan that young people have been using to describe their undying devotion and dedication and worship to a influencer. Mm-hmm. That is a stan. To the point of mania and like extremism. Like, I'm not joking. Yeah. Like they say extreme shit out of love of their fandom, right?
Yeah.
So the etymology of stan comes from an Eminem song that came out when I was 6 years old. 6, 7, 8. I think it came out when I was 8, so I was probably 1997. Mm-hmm. 8, 99, whatever. Eminem came out with the song Stan. It was this amazing song. And like, everybody, if you are that 35, 40-year-old or above demographic who's never heard Stan, I implore you, please listen to that song. It's an amazing song. Just in terms of storytelling, it's a great story in a song. And it tells the story of a hyper obsessed fan of Eminem. And I guess the first verse it seems a little kind of innocent, a little bit. It starts off as a fan letter to Eminem. Dear Eminem, blah, blah, blah. And then as the verses and the bars go on and on and on, and the verses get darker and darker, and you realize that this guy, his name is Stan, who loves Eminem, is not a good guy. Not well in the head, and it ends up tragic at the end of the song. But the most amazing part is that 80% of the song is told through Stan's perspective, and the last part is Eminem. And it's like it's kind of, I guess, it says everything about what we're about to talk about. But that's where the word Stan comes from. It's funny because when I was little, that song was really important. I think it was Grammy Award winning. It played everywhere. Even my parents understood the significance of that song because it's an amazing song. But none of us ever thought Stan was cool. In fact, I remember listening to that song for the first time in the morning going to school on Kiss FM, and really understanding, because you're a kid, you want to meet Tom Cruise, you want to do Mission Impossible, or you want to meet Sam Neill or Jeff Goldblum because they were on fucking Jurassic Park, whatever it is. But then you really understand oh, people can get really intense about that. And then I remember legitimately being afraid of Stan. So fast forward about 15 plus years later, young people, your kids, your 15-year-old kid or maybe younger than that, are using this word to describe themselves as a super fan. Yeah. The problem is, though, because we were talking about this during breakfast, is do these kids even know where this word comes from?
I don't think so.
Because everyone's really into about words, where words come from these days. Yeah. I want to know, do they know? And we really thought about it, and we were like, no, I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So they're using this word to people on animation Twitter, or people on who work on their favorite Cartoon Network show or whatever, Netflix show, DreamWorks show. I stand for you, which means my undying devotion and soul is dedicated to you, and I will do anything. You want me to shit on this other influencer? Tell me, and I'll do it. You want me to go comment here? You want me to vote for this person? You want me to do this or that? I'm with you all the way. That's what a stan is.
Yeah. The amazing thing about the Stan song is how it depicts how a fan can turn into a stan, and then an anti-stan, or anti-fan.
the three parts, the trifecta.
And the interesting thing about what you said is they never say I stan. They say we stan. And that's really important, actually. I've mentioned this book before, but The Influence by Robert Cialdini, it goes into a lot of psychological things that advertisers will do, or things you need to look out for. And he said this one thing that I thought was interesting that I didn't really make much of at the time, but the power of community and, in a way, social proof is amazing. There's something about our monkey brain where we really respond to that. And when, let's say you're a sports fan, when your sports team is winning, you always say we, as if you didn't play basketball, you weren't on that court, you didn't do anything, yet you use the term we. When your team is losing, you then use they. You're trying to separate yourself from them. I'm not proud of them or whatever. And that's an interesting thing that we do as humans. And when I first really started getting into like internet culture and like diving into this world, and then it happening to me when I decided to be on the internet, I noticed that again. Stans always say we. We don't want you. We love you. We whatever. But who's we? Who are you referring to? You? Yourself?
You mean just
singular?
you?
And like stan culture is interesting because there's also the anti-stan, which is kind of the same thing. Like I said, a lot of the people who hate Ashley, who hate Bestdressed or certain people, they were like fervent fans of them. They started like just loving her. And I think it's really powerful when you turn someone who used to love you into someone who hates you. And I think that's why her fans, not fans, her stans, anti-stans, really hate her. It's because it's like they didn't know, like just like in that song, you listen to that song, they didn't know what to do with themselves at a certain point, and then they're just like, I hate you for not, I don't know, noticing me. And it's kind of crazy. It has nothing to do with
Eminem at all.
That's like that again, you bring it back to like the whole like video essay I was talking about. If you're a lot of what the criticisms, or I guess like solutions that these people would have for influencers or whatever, is to do more. to maybe you should do this, or you should do that, or not do this, or not do that. And it's like, but you are the one upset by them, and they have no idea that you're upset by whatever it is that, like, how is it that their fault that you are upset? Like, you know what I mean? I was just like, that, like, if you think that way, then you listen to the Stan song and you think Eminem was the reason why Stan drove himself off a cliff.
Right, basically.
Which is not the point of the song at all.
No.
Completely not. Like, that's how crazy that
Eminem
is.
doesn't realize it's Stan until the last second of the song, I guess.
And there's an interesting point in that song too, where Eminem apologizes for something he did not do, and then he's like, "Oh, sorry that I missed you. I didn't mean to diss you. It wasn't personal."
Yeah.
And certain anti-stans, I think, have really gone off the deep end, where they think that the influencer they're hating on is personally trying to do something to them. Like, personally deleting their comments. Personally reading their gossip on the gossip forums or something. Dude, they probably don't know you exist.
Yeah.
If they deleted your comment, it was probably a filter. Like, they didn't personally go to your comment and go, I hate you, delete. Like, it's nothing personal.
You probably blocked the word hate.
Yeah, or whatever. Like, that's why I'm like, man, there's something about these anti-stans that are like kind of not all there.
I was a stan.
Yeah.
I was a stan, and I know exactly what it feels like. And it feels like, I guess, what people in a cult feels like, where you really feel like you know these people, the people that you're standing over. So I used to be very big stan for the Game Over Greggy show. Kind of funny channel, I guess. I watched them. So my situation was, after I graduated art school, I was looking for work, and I didn't have a lot of time to see my friends. I think I only saw them in the year first couple years I was looking for work. I probably saw them like once or twice in those years. And what helped was there was this show, still is, called the Game Over Greggy show, where these 4 best friends would come and sit down and talk about the most random shit, like just the most like nothing to do about anything kind of topics. And just like, and it was just really interesting to listen to all of their perspectives and to see them gel and their chemistry together. to the point where their show is very similar to ours, except there's like 2 more people, and then there's a camera right there, and then it really feels like you're sitting there with them, talking with them, and having a good time. And I would be stuck at work or looking for work, and missing my friends, but the best I could do to have that sort of that thing that you would do with your friends, you would like just hang out and like in front of a grocery store or in your living room or whatever, and just talk shit and like whatever stuff, and it would just be really cathartic. And what I fell in love with was the chemistry, was the love, and the little bickering between each and every member of the group. And it's so crazy. It's like so they would come out with a video every day, Monday through Friday. And when you watch people for that long, and I watched them for 3 or 4 years, 3.5 years, something like that, you really grow attached to people. And, you, like what we talked about, there's obviously things that I get frustrated with everyone, with each member, but like, you try to look past it, or you kind of look past it, because like, they're your buddies or whatever, they're your best friends. And then like they had a falling out, and then which was really interesting. The timing of that was because they would come out with these like live shows, and then I was about to go, I was this close. I remember working at Starburns and like being this close to roping you and my brother into this crazy fucking ridiculous trip to San Francisco just to see these fuckers do whatever. But then I was when I saw that happen, I was like really angry that I paid for something to pay. Like I got angry that it was like they roped me into something that that wasn't real. And I could hear Colin go, well, that's how the free market works. You paid for it. You want to go to this thing. They have this service. You paid for it. Like, well, there's no fucking problem here. Which is true. Colin, you're right. But my problem was I bought into the friendship. It wasn't the gaming aspect, it wasn't the pop culture critiquing aspect, or even like the homie buddy conversations that they would have. It's the concept of that these are friends and these are buddies, and like we're all buddies here. And as soon as I was like, oh, this is all an illusion, I immediately like went from stan 1,000% to 0. And it was a shocking feeling. I remember that day, like, and this is so crazy when you're a stan, you just I felt like somebody I knew died, or somebody I knew had a bad day, or like, and I was feeling it, and that's fucking I don't know any of these fucking people. That's weird, right?
Yeah, you don't actually know.
I don't know these people, but I feel like I do, because I listen to them all the time. So when that happened, I was like, and yeah, I never listened to them ever again. And still listen to Colin a lot, but I couldn't get down with being called a best friend after what happened, because it's just like but I didn't pay to watch just 3 of you. I paid to watch all of you.
Yeah. And that's where, like, yeah, everyone has the capability of standing for something, or like everyone, like, I mean, when you asked me, have I ever like idolized someone or felt that way about a thing, a person, anything, and I was like, no, not really. I'm not really someone that has idols like that.
Do you stand for me? No, you don't stand for me.
Yeah, no.
No, never mind.
And the closest thing I could come up with is there was never one person, but it was kind of like the idea of animation as a whole. It was like, I felt like I loved the idea of this thing so much.
So you stand for the idea, of animation.
Yeah.
You stand for that CTN Lightbox culture.
Yeah. And so like when I think in my Disney video I talked about like, oh, like you start, I might one day work for these people that I looked up to and I idolize. Like there are people I look up to, yeah, but I never like idolize any one person. It was like the idea of like working in a group of your peers that are really talented in this thing, and it was the idea that I guess I stand for. But I think everyone has an aspect of that in them, regardless of how like individualistic you are. And we are.
Yeah.
Both of us tend to be really like, we're black sheep. We really like don't like being part of a group or anything like that. And even we have a little bit of that tendency.
I stand so hard for Derek Trucks.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, he is the greatest person on the planet. He's the most amazing human being in the world. The way he plays his guitar, it's like a soul singer singing. It's the most amazing thing in the world. We need to protect him. We need to protect Derek Trucks.
At this point, I wouldn't call you a stan for Derek.
What?
I'd call you a simp.
Oh! Hey! Just because I watch his solos every day. God.
That's what simps say. We need to protect whoever.
What's the difference between a simp and a stan?
I'm not sure, but I think a simp is more like loving, more like I love you, no matter what.
I was so embarrassed now. I hope Derek's not listening.
Oh god. And so recently, I don't know if this is true. I think I read this somewhere. I don't remember where, but I think some of us people are predispositioned genetically to want to be part of a group. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that's fascinating. That's weird, because that's not me. Like I'm the opposite of that. But when you think about it, you know people who are like that. Like whether it's in high school or work or whatever, you know people who just, for some reason, they really want to be in like the popular group. They really want to be accepted into this group or whatever. They really want to be part of something. And when I learned that like it's kind of genetic, I was like, oh, interesting. I would love to ask like Brett Weinstein, evolutionary biologist, if that's true or if I just read something fake. Yeah. But I also, as someone who tends to be a little bit judgmental, it helped someone like me be a little bit kinder in my judgment of those people. Of like, oh, well, some people just want to be part of a group. Like, they can't help it, in a way. Like
just like how we can't help being allergic to that feeling. I really don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't like being a part of a group at all.
It freaks me out.
Yeah.
That mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's like organized religion or whatever political side you're on or whatever group you're part of. Like, I don't want any part of it. It's freaky. It's awful. And all of this to say that it's really informed the way we have decided to tackle this thing, how we've decided to behave, and what we want out of this.
So the way I see it is like you and I are pretty talented, weird, unique individuals, right? This is a zoo. You come to the zoo and then you watch the monkeys dance. And then we dance, and then you are free to like move on somewhere else or help out the zoo by supporting our channel, hitting the like button or leaving a comment.
Yeah.
We're not forcing you to love us like all the other animation people on the internet. We're not building a community. In fact, the reason I said it was such a relief to see that Tim didn't comment on anybody's thing was like, oh, so we can do this without creating a community. Because in all of the pieces of advice, truly, the best one is to create a community. Yeah. The problem is you have to cater to the community. Yeah. And you and I, we don't cater to anybody but ourselves. So we tried to do it in the beginning. And we were like, this sucks.
Yeah,
We don't like telling people what to do. I don't like being told what to do. I just hate the whole idea of a community.
Yeah. So, Tim is probably the best example of in terms of community, how I like to think about it. And it's like, when I first started all this, people who, I don't know, would try to discourage me, hate on me, I don't know what to call it, but they would like say certain things to try to get under my skin, which I think is hilarious because they think they know what gets under my skin, which they assumed was I cared about likes or followers or losing subscribers or whatever. And
man, that's so funny. People would like DM you on Instagram and YouTube like, you're gonna lose followers for this.
Yeah, and
fucking leave.
Yeah, then leave. I don't care. I thought that was really funny, like, because some people would do it out of care.
Right.
Some people would do it out of vitriol.
Right.
And some people would just, I don't know, wanted to watch and like eat popcorn and watch.
Right.
But people would say that to me. And I thought that the people who were trying to do it to like, I don't know, make me cry or scare me or whatever it was, I thought it was funny because I was like, what makes you think I care? What makes you think that I care if I get dislikes? What makes you think I care if you leave? What makes you think, like, when I chose to become an artist, I had to deal with a lot of bullshit in my life. And through it all, I put myself through an art center. And that craziness. And then I achieved my dream. The craziest dream that ever was, which was like, I'm gonna work in Hollywood. I'm gonna work at Disney. I'm gonna do this. I don't care what you say.
And then
guess what? I went, fuck you, Disney. Bye. You think I care? You think I care about what people think of me? It's like, I was like, none of this register to you. And so
it's like when people give you that whole thing of like, oh, are you afraid of losing followers? People are gonna dislike this and hate on you. Just like, that's everything you're worried about. That's nothing I'm worried about.
Like, I've gone through so much worse, and like I did so much to please when I was working for Disney. What makes you think I quit Disney just to please you? Like, I know, I don't care. I quit so I can do what I want. And I am betting, like, this high risk, high reward thing of like, if I put this random weird creative thing I'm doing on the internet for the world to see, I'm betting that if I do it consistently enough, if I work hard enough, if I make this content as best as possible, that maybe someone would want to watch it. Maybe. It's not guaranteed. I very well could fail. I understand that. Like, that is the free market. That is the, like, if suddenly everyone decides they want to unsubscribe from me, if suddenly everyone hates me, if they dislike what I'm doing, and I run out of money, so be it. That's just the world telling me what I'm doing sucks. And I'm gonna have to go find something else to do with my life. That's perfectly fine. And I'm not gonna sit here and, like, beg people to give me money or beg people to like or comment or whatever. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you politely, please do that. If you want to support me, but you don't have to. I'm not gonna command you. I don't control you, and I don't want to ever ask anyone to do anything. If you've noticed, every time we've, like, given advice or our opinions or whatever, I never go like, do this. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. I don't know you. I don't know your life, your special circumstances. Like, I hate it when people tell me what to do. What makes you think I want to tell other people what to do? And I don't know anything. I'm like 28. I never want, and honestly, that's why we don't have a Patreon.
Yeah.
I don't.
From the very beginning, we were like, no, we're not gonna have. We do not want to work for anyone.
Yeah, I work for myself.
Yeah.
And I do what I want.
And if people want to keep working for their fans and be chained to their Patreon, that's fine. But that's not us.
Yeah, and so, like, just like Tim, you don't have to watch me if you don't want to. You don't have to like me if you don't want to. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm not going to tell you to. We're not going to name our fans, our community. Because we don't...
what, the squad or fam?
No.
You know what to do, fam!
No. Oh, God, no.
Oh, God, cringe. Fuck.
And I'm not going to send the army to, like, go do whatever it is. Like, that's not something that I want. I just want to do my thing. If you want to watch, if you want to support, cool. Thank you. If you don't, okay, bye. That's fine.
And that's always been, even like when we do conventions, that's our attitude. Mm-hmm. We, at conventions, do not go... I remember Mike and Victoria had this like piece of advice of like, you need to be standing and shaking your hand with every single person at convention. I'm like, motherfuckers, have you not been to a convention? Like, do you stand every day during LA Comic Con? I don't think so. So we are not out there like looking at people in the eye and like saying, hey, come to our thing. We're not even standing up during conversations or whatever. We have our face to the desk drawing. Mm-hmm. And what we learned was that's so much more attractive than, doing the whole rigmarole of like standing and kind of peddling for people's attention. And I think it's really us to be like, our style is like, we're going to do something neat. You are free to walk in that direction if you want. But if you're into what we're doing, come watch.
Yeah.
Then that's always been our approach, especially in the convention. So when I see people desperately trying to cultivate their community and tell them to do shit, I'm like, you guys, you're going to end up crying one day in front of the camera. And then I will be one of the people with popcorn.
That's the thing. So like the people who I want to believe who want to tell their fans or to tell people to do something, they come from a good place. I think they think, well, again, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And they're like, there's this thing that happens when you start to become a content creator on the internet, in particular, because you feel like you're being watched all the time. There's this pressure that I think people who don't put themselves out there, who are content creators, put literally themselves out there, won't be able to ever understand. Because I've talked to some people and they're like, I don't think I can. It's something that only you can know and other creators. And this pressure can make you do crazy things. Can make you feel like you're more important than you are, or it can break you. It really can, because then you feel like a lot of people feel like they don't deserve it. They don't deserve to be watched like this, or to have this kind of adoration or hate. And I think most people are good, and I think their natural instinct is to be like, okay, if I have all this power, this influence, and this whatever, it means that I need to be responsible. I need to behave a certain way. I need to be a good example for people who look up to me. And I think that's a good instinct to have. Mm-hmm. But then when you start feeling that way, like you have influence and like you have power, you start telling people to do things. Good or bad. Even if it's good intention, you start telling people like, you should be like this, you should be like that, whatever. And I think that's just so that will break you one day. because the more you grow, the bigger you get, and the more pressure you feel. And then you think you have this great big responsibility to be a certain way towards people, and then at that point you're adding more pressure onto yourself on top of the pressure you already have. And I think like influencers and people like that, they have a responsibility to just make content. Period.
That's their responsibility.
Period.
Yeah.
Like they don't have a responsibility to be good people. Just don't do something illegal. But like if you want to be an awful person, that's your right to be an awful person.
Yeah.
If you want to be a good person, cool. But I don't have any expectation for someone to be whatever. They are who they are. If you want to watch. If you don't want to watch, don't watch. If you want to hate watch, okay. That's a lot of it.
Thanks for the views.
Yeah. So to me, that's what that is. I feel like the people who feel that way are people who think everyone thinks like them. Because then they go like, oh, I'm a good person and I'm trying to be a good person, so I'm going to tell people what to do because everyone thinks like me. But I feel like we are hyper aware that people are different. Like I'm not gonna sit here and tell people like you should quit your job at Disney and become a YouTuber.
Yeah, we don't want to reveal our politics or anything, but we despise being told what to do.
Yeah,
it is like you cannot piss us off more than telling us to do something.
Yeah,
barking orders at us, and to that extent, we don't like telling people what to do either.
Yeah, and it's just. It's like I don't know you. I don't know your circumstance.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know anything.
To give you a blanket command to me is kind of really inconsiderate.
Yeah. That's why whenever we give advice, I go like, "This is my advice. Do it or do not. I don't care."
Yeah.
And
not out of like callousness or anything. It's just like this is your life to make decisions with.
Yeah.
You're your RPG. You're your own RPG characters. I can't tell you what skill tree, whatever you want to invest in. This is your game. You know?
Yeah, and I think the people who think, oh, influencers should have more responsibility to do this or to that, to prevent hate or to prevent whatever, I think like, okay, I think stans and audiences have to have more responsibility in acknowledging that you have a brain too.
Yeah.
You have a choice to watch them or not watch them. Pick one.
Okay.
So, yeah, and also, about the whole, like, conventioning thing, about how to, like, how to like market yourself. So there's like the typical like really out there salesperson, like
right.
the sleazy salesperson, like everyone knows what that is. And I think for people like me, we're told that you have to sell in that way. If you want to sell something, you have to be like that. You have to be outgoing. You have to like put yourself out there. You have to like shake everyone's hand.
Always be closing.
Yeah. But you know, when we actually started selling, like actually real world experience, everyone has their own way of doing it. And you shouldn't work against your own natural personality and tendencies.
Right.
You should work with it.
Right.
So I am very introverted and soft-spoken, and I'm not high energy at all, whereas you are. And I think that we work really well in that situation because we know who is better at talking to who. So like, if someone is more like me, I usually do better at talking to them.
And when I talk to them, I tend to scare them away.
Yeah. Because like, if
whereas in guys are too crippled to talk to you because girl.
Yeah, or whatever.
So they're more willing to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and this is something I learned like working in like retail too, like or even as your own personal experience walking into a retail shop. Like if you're like me, I don't want to be talked to.
Yeah.
Like salesperson, don't come to me. I don't want to talk to you.
Same thing with our Uber drives. Like
yeah, don't talk to me. So,
don't
like,
even try.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Like if you talk to me, you're gonna scare me away. I'm like try to avoid. I'm gonna run away from you. Go around the table or whatever just to get to the thing I need to buy and leave. I'm not the kind of person that wants to chit chat about I don't browse.
Right.
But then there are people who would find it rude if the salesperson didn't greet them and like come up to them.
To assume that everyone's approach is our preference is a little stupid.
Yeah.
Because everyone approaches a salesperson in a different way.
Yeah. So I remember we were next to this guy who was kind of like carnival barking at everyone to get them to buy his thing.
Merch, yeah.
And we had that way of selling where we just kind of keep our head down. If people want to buy something from us, they'll let us know. We're not going to like chase after a sale. We're not going to like harass people. And he pointed out to me that like, hey, you just lost a sale because someone came by, looked at something, walked away.
That's like somebody who's like, oh, you lost a few followers.
Yeah. And then I was like, they'll buy something. They'll come and buy something if they want.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, like my thing is like I like, you know, I get everyone to come and like yell at them. Yeah. And I was like, you know, like everyone has their own way. Like I can't be you.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like I don't have that personality. I don't have that. If I tried to do that, I'd lose my voice in 2 seconds. And I was like, and it wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. Like
it works for you, but like if I tried to do that, it would come across so unnatural, so wrong. People would be like, look at me funny, and then like I'd never sell anything. So I strongly believe that like everyone has their way of selling, even if you are introverted, even if you are like quieter or shyer or whatever. Like you just might be the perfect salesperson for another shy introverted person.
Yeah. So
recommendations.
I guess moral of the story, you are your own person. We are not telling you what to do. We are not hypnotizing you. We recommend things to you. We're influencing sort of like, oh, how you should spend your time with watching this movie we're about to recommend or whatever it is. But we're not hypnotizing you. There's no big Illuminati hypnotizing apparatus here for you to click that subscribe button. Do it.
Yeah.
No,
please like.
Yeah. Oh no, they're going to write essays about how you're a horrible human being.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. So recommendations for this week. I was looking at local news and I discovered that I think it's called like Ghetto Film School. And it's a short film competition for people who are in high school and college, I think, that age group. And they picked their 3 winners.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend you go watch those short films. And I was really impressed because what this is all organization, I guess, is all about is encouraging people who don't typically go into the arts, the ghetto film school, to make movies, to get into filmmaking and that kind of thing. And so I went and watched their short films, and I was so impressed because for the most part they're in like high school or college, and man, these are some great little filmmakers making the most out of quarantine. And I kept thinking, like, I am nothing.
I've graduated prestigious art school, worked for Disney.
Yeah.
Look at some student films and I'm like, I'm nothing.
And they, like, one did like a half kind of animation, half film, like filmed on a camera, and another person did like a photography film, or like still photography sequential image film, and then another person did like a short film, a dreamy, very like artsy short film. Mm-hmm. And I thought, like, man, some like not like these are obviously like amateur. These are obviously done by like people who are younger, but they are gonna go places one day because you're making it. You're making movies. You're making short films during Corona time. Like, what the heck? And like some of their shot language is very beautiful.
Yeah.
And their ability to tell a story is really like, oh wow, I can see this on Netflix one day.
And for people who do not know, you spent 4 years in animation.
Yes.
And as a storyboard artist.
Yes.
So you know a lot about shot language.
Yeah, and I want to say storyboarding is kind of like theory. It's kind of like you don't really know what it's going to look like until it happens. And all of animation, that's kind of how I see it. And I have even less respect for people who've never held a camera in their lives, who just like storyboard in animation or like whatever. Cause like when you're working, storyboard artists tend to have really big egos, and like directors as well. And they like to think of themselves as filmmakers. And yet they don't know the difference between a 16mm and a 35mm lens. And they don't, not only that, it's not like technically you can know the difference, but do you know how to use it? And you know how to use it emotionally. And you know how to do all these things with a physical, and what is and isn't capable. Like when you start filming, you'll start to realize, oh, I can't get this shot unless I tear down my wall, my bathroom wall.
Limitations.
Yeah.
Limitations, right.
Or like, this is just not practical. Or I don't know how to use a camera well enough in order to get this shot. Like, I know I want this shot, but I can't get it. And there's so much of that is so interesting about filmmaking. It kind of made me realize why people in live action really look down on animation. And I look at these kids, I'm like, wow, they're so far ahead than people who I worked with at Disney. So go watch these films. They're great. They're so talented. Support these young filmmakers.
Support the new generation.
All right, thank you for listening. Head over to honeyandabsent.com to buy our merch. I am currently wearing the Reach shirt today. And make sure to like the podcast, subscribe, comment if you want.
If you want.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.